Jefferson-Marshall is an English teacher and an author based out of Wolfforth, Texas. And he's joining us on Big Blend Radio today to talk about his Texas State Parks it's a Texas State Park Adventures children's book series. And the first two are out now. I'm very excited about it because, Nancy, we love our parks. And Texas has some beautiful parks. We went to our first state park not too long ago, August. We went to Tyler in Tyler, Texas. It was a state park, and it was so beautiful. So very excited. We haven't been to the two parks that he's talking about in his books and covering in his books, but now I want to go. So I encourage you to go to TexasStateParkAdventures.com. So he's also on Facebook and Instagram under the same name. But welcome, Jefferson. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are y'all today?
Oh, we're doing good. Oh, listen, see, we're recording this while we're in Madison, Wisconsin, right? And you're in Texas, and I just heard the y'all. So now I'm feeling a little home now. I haven't heard the y'all for like a few weeks. I can't help it.
It just stays there. Yeah.
Well, speaking of Texas, you were born in Marshall, Texas. Any connection to your last name? Like, what's going on with that?
Not that I'm aware of, but the first name is the funny story because my first name's Jefferson, and about 20 miles away is Jefferson, Texas as well. So I think my mom just looked at a map.
Maybe she threw a dart in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, is Jefferson part of the Jefferson Highway? There's this new initiative for this highway that goes all the way through. I know Natchitoches, Louisiana is part of that. They just did this unveiling of being part of the historic trail of Jefferson Highway, this old highway. They're trying to make it a main, how Route 66 is. They're doing that, going all the way up to Canada and through Ohio and all kinds of places. So I wonder about that. Like if Jefferson is part of that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard of that, but yeah, that would be interesting.
Well, we'll find out when we come back through because we will. We will. We kind of go around in circles as we travel on our Love Your Parks tour. And I think this is so cool what you've done. You've really focused on state parks. You've got your first two books out. And what age group would you say? Because I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying them. And I'm, let's not go my age there. Nobody needs to know about that. But what age group are you looking at that would enjoy the books?
Elementary age, I think that independently about second or third graders should be able to read it.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So the first book is The Creatures of Caprock Canyons. Now I want to go, like Nancy, right? The creatures.
Yeah, we like creatures.
Yeah, especially if they're from the Black Lagoon, but you've got The Creatures of Caprock Canyons. So tell us a little bit about this book.
And so I liked the idea of The Creatures of Caprock Canyons just from an English teacher's perspective. It's a really good alliteration, but as a child, and even adult sometimes in the dark, you're always thinking about what might lurk in the shadows. And so The Creatures of Caprock Canyons focuses on, of course, Caprock Canyons State Park located in Kittiquay, Texas. And I kind of think that park is one of the hidden gems of the state parks in Texas. That Palodoro, the focus of my second book, is a canyon, but this is one that you're more off the beaten path. And while these children are off the beaten path in the state park, they're coming across a mystery of a creature that they're hearing in the night, and they're trying to discover what it might be, and in their minds, save the park from whatever trouble this creature might cause.
See, now, I know you've got creatures in the Palodoro one, too, the Palodoro Lighthouse race. That's the second book. But this is what's interesting. You've got Kenrick, Ivan, Coulter. You've got the same group of kids going through both books, right? So it's kind of like the Hardy Boys of state parks for Texas.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm hoping, is that with this series, the love of these 5 different unique characters will grow as well.
And so let's talk about the characters before we get into more, like each one, because they each have their personality. And from what I was reading, everyone, there's a little competitiveness in there, and I love this because you also seem to have like a teamwork thing going on, and it's got to come from you being a teacher, right? Teaching this age group, kind of understanding that little competitive streak, but then also that bonding part, that teamwork of let's get it done together. Like we're excited about the race in the Palodoro book. So there's this excitement, competitive streak, but there's also teamwork, it seems, with your book. Both of them, I should say.
Yes, ma'am. And so a lot of the characters were, thinking about my childhood growing up in Wolfrith, we were very different in our personalities and also in our backgrounds as well. And I think that's one thing that makes Texas wonderful, is just how unique everyone can be. And I wanted to show that in my characters as well. Sometimes you're very gung-ho and a thrill seeker, or sometimes you're very competitive, or sometimes you are analytical and kind of sit back and kind of watch things unfurl and are thinking about things from a logical sense. And so I wanted every character in my story to be unique, and for every child who read it to be able to identify with one of those characters, because children aren't all the same. They should be different.
Absolutely. And they are. I that's one of the things I like about your books. As I'm reading it, I say, oh, well, that's a little bit of me over there. And then I go to the other book, I'm like, well, that's a little bit of me over there. It's so I think that you've done a really good job of getting the characters to be really real. Like I feel like I know them.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that they've been enjoyable, and what I was kind of shooting for with those characters has kind of proven true, because we want to, in what we read, identify with the, honestly, as an author, I want my characters to encourage my readers to seek adventures of their own, whatever that may look like. So.
Cool.
And that I love that, because there's that that inquisitive side of what you're doing, and you're going on this trip, which on both of them, both state parks, you're going on this trip as kids. When you had the outing as kids, it's like, yippee, we're out of town, there's a whole new thing going on. It's like, how are we all going to behave? Like, what can we do? There's that whole thing, and even getting on the bus, I think that's so exciting. You're like, okay, dudes, it's most parents are like, oh, really? Do we have to drive that distance? But for kids, it's like, dude, let's go. The thing too I wanted to touch on is both state parks, the creatures of Caprock Canyon. Let's kind of delve in for those who are not from Texas, or some. I know, hey, a lot of us sometimes don't know our backyard, so I think this is important too. So just in case, the creatures of Caprock Canyon. So Caprock Canyon State Park. Where is that? Give everyone kind of a little overview of this. Did you go to the park, go camping, and get your fingernails dirty in the dirt to be able to write this?
Oh yeah, I can't write about a park that's here in Texas without first falling in love with it. And it was a wonderful place to fall in love. I think the moment I decided I loved it was when the sun was setting one evening. We were camping. I think it was early October. And the way the light was hitting the canyon, it kind of turned the orange to just kind of a glowing red. And there's not a lot of times you see a canyon with the glowing red, and unless you're just right at the golden hour of the sunset, where it just, I don't know, it feels otherworldly. And so I wanted to share that there's places that are like this with people who may not have the opportunity to live around here or see places like this, or like you were saying, it's in their very backyard, but we haven't taken the time to explore it yet. My hope is that people will see the beauty of their natural surroundings all around them, and maybe these stories can spark that to life.
I love it.
Yeah, so this is, yeah.
I love it, because when we went to Tyler, Texas, we went to Tyler State Park, and it was our first, I think it can't be our first one. I think we did something in Nacogdoches too. I don't know. But and it was like, I think it was like our first like true park experience with the park ranger, hiking around, and and I was like, can we bring alligators here? And he's like, no, they're not here, but they're over in Mineola. And we're like, okay, we went to Mineola and we did see a gator. We were very happy about that.
Cool.
Good.
But we've done different things in Texas, but not as in depth as that park, and it just blew my mind. I mean, they had spider lilies like blooming everywhere, trees and woodpeckers and the lake and the whole thing, and just the history of the area. And it seemed when I was talking to Boyd, the park ranger, he was talking about, and I was thinking of you. I think I even told him about you, and I'm like, this is so cool about these state parks. You've got all these cities around, but it seems like Texas really cares, number one, about its history. How many times have you said this, Nancy, that you think like Texas is like, it's like a little dog running around and pee-peeing on every corner and saying, this is my territory, because there's historical markers everywhere. And when we first went to Texas and started to document them on the El Camino Real de los Tejas National Historic Trail from Natchitoches, Louisiana to Nacogdoches, Texas, we thought, let's stop at each marker. Well, you're never going to get there because there's a marker for every event that happened, but a lot went down in Texas. So, like, there's a reason for these things to be there. So there's a big deal about the history, but there's also the state parks. This idea of recreation is a big deal, and also the natural space and protecting that. And Boyd, at the park ranger we talked to, was talking about all these things that they're trying to do. They have certain like weekends where they bring parents and families in, and like they'll and people that may not have the funding for it, like they'll go in and make sure that they have tents and food and everything. They'll take the kids out on an adventure hike and then teach the parents how to put up a tent, so that the parents can be like, hey, look, I put the tent up. So they're actually teaching the parents and the kids at the same time in this really cool program, so that they know their backyard and have the ability that they may not have thought that they could have to go into these parks and public spaces, which I think is really cool. And I think that's what's amazing. What you're doing is getting people families to be excited, because most of the times the parent's going to touch the book before the kids, and maybe at the same, together,
And I've heard stories of quite a few people saying, well, thank you for allowing us to read this, because it reminded me of this time that I got to share with my child or grandchild. And then we packed up the next day and we headed to that state park. And that's the best thing that I could hear, is that it's encouraging families to get back in nature and be together.
And I think there's something like camping is so special. It on the one hand, it seems a little nerve-wracking if you're not used to it. On the other hand, there's only this bit of cloth between you and the outdoors when you're in the tent. It's not, so it's exciting. And for some people, they could be a little nervous about that. But there's something about it when you get a handle on it and you sit outside and you have a little campfire and you're looking at the stars. There's something primal about it, I think, where you can really breathe in, relax, and know that you actually do belong there. And then maybe all these cement and stucco walls and pavement are things we put in for convenience that sometimes I look at them like, do we really need it? Did we really, we block out so much of what we need to experience. You know what I mean?
And I'm very much a Jack Glendon Call of the Wild kind of guy, where that primal nature is very important. And so I think that Texas, I can't talk about it enough, it's the state I love, but I think that, Texas has a history of being wild and part of the Wild West, and we hear all these old stories. Well, I think that we desire to still be wild. And so when you go out and you're camping, your adventure is facing some of that adversity, some of that fear, and being able to persevere through that And even just as simple as, oh my gosh, I survived the night in the tent and it was so scary and I didn't know what was out there, that sticks with you because you overcame something.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of lessons to be drawn from getting back in the outdoors, seeing those stars, being around a campfire, and knowing that, oh, I survived without my four walls, or I survived without my video game or my cell phone. And I think that the Texas state parks are a good, they bridge a good gap because there's much wilder places that the Texas state parks allow. This is your jumping off point. This is your stepping off point for, I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to camp. I want to learn to be in the woods, but I'm not ready for all of that. So let's start here. Let's get our ground underneath us. Let's discover some of the creatures around us and really get our feet wet in this idea of going out and being in the outdoors and having these adventures. So I think that the state parks are good for that. Also, I just love that with how vast the state of Texas is, our landscapes are vast too. So I've written the first two books about canyons, but you said that y'all were in Tyler, Texas. That's a very different landscape altogether.
Swampy.
But Texas has yes, exactly. Texas has beaches. Texas has swamps. It's got caves. It's got sand dunes. And so I think that there's a vast world out there in just the state of Texas to explore and have adventures.
I think you're going to be busy for very many years. I mean, you've done 2 books in 1 year. Didn't The Creatures of Caprock Canyons come out in April, and then Palodoro Lighthouse, that came out, in September, October?
October. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you're busy, and it takes time to craft it. And I mean, you're an English teacher, so you know how to write. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's no typos in there. I can't email them and say, hey, dude, no. It's all good. But it reads well, and I like that. I mean, I like to read kids' books because there's always that sense of adventure that us adults need to go back into and have. And the other part, I just think right now, as a teacher, don't you find that kids really need the outdoors more than the video games? And you talk about that in The Creatures of Caprock. The very beginning of the book is about, the video games. And we all like that, and it's fun. But I think it's so important, this natural landscape versus the phone all the time, right? There's got to be a balance. And I think that I'm worried about what's happening to kids with technology and not having – I think – adults, we're having a problem. And so we have to start getting that balance now, really now.
Yeah. Well, I think that for a long time, I don't know when we decided we would want to be so, maybe it's because we had the choice of being comfortable. We became comfortable. And sometimes it's easy to come home and be comfortable and be on your phone for a few hours or play a game for a few hours. But I think adventure is about embracing the things that are uncomfortable, because in those times where you're tested, that's when you grow. And so that's what I want to see my characters do. That's what I want to see my students do. That's what I want children who read my books to do. And that's what I want to do. I want to be faced with opportunities that allow us to grow, and in that maybe we'll learn what's more important than the cell phone or the video game is times with the ones we love. And I think a lot of that is through the outdoors.
The Palodoro Lighthouse race. So they all got to race to the lighthouse. So now Palodoro, we first talked to you when we were in Lubbock, Texas. Hello, Cheryl, our friend Cheryl up there in Cusco the Cat. We were hanging out there in Lubbock, and, she connected us with you. And you're like, just above you, there's this amazing canyon. This is such an important place. And our timing wasn't going to work to go there. And, we will get there. I promise. We will get there. I think yet is our favorite word. But the Palodoro Canyon, let's talk about that state park, where that is, and why it's so important that we know about it and go to it.
So Palodoro Canyon is located about 10 to 15 miles south of Amarillo. And so part of it being so popular as it is, I would imagine, has to do with its location to I-40. If I'm saying the right highway. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
But
yeah, okay.
also beyond that, it holds the title of being the second largest canyon in the national or in the United States after the Grand Canyon.
Wow.
And it really is vast when you the first lookout that you get a chance to see at Palodoro Canyon. It's large what you see as you're looking out, but you don't realize it's connected much further beyond that. And Palodoro Canyon State Park is just a little tiny piece of that. But it also holds a pretty iconic formation that's on the cover of my book as well, called the Lighthouse, which is how long was it? It was about 2.6 miles there, and then, you return back. But I think its location and also the size and grandeur of the park is what's made it so popular over the years. And so it is, it's, as far as the natural places to go visit in Texas, probably one of the top. And so I liked the idea of almost kind of making an Odyssey kind of adventure story where along the way to achieve our goal, we're facing all these things to finally get to this iconic location. And so once again, the canyons just being a feature that not a lot of people get to see, or even people who live in Texas. Amarillo, from if you're in the Houston or Austin area, is quite a way. So I wanted everyone across Texas, children across Texas, even if they can't get there personally, to be able to experience it.
Sometimes it's really hard to wrap your mind around a thing like a canyon. We use the word, and those of us who have been fortunate enough to go to the Grand Canyon and other canyons and see what a canyon is, it's still wrapping your mind around how the canyons were actually formed. And some of them you can see the layers, the rock formations, you can see the layers in the sand, and you can kind of see, but I don't know if the mind yet can grapple with the many years it takes of repetitive things to happen to form a canyon. And so we go to the canyon, we stand, and we're like, oh, this is beautiful, look how vast it is. And I remember, I think it was the Gila Wilderness. We were in the Gila Wilderness in New Mexico. Yeah. And where that, I think it's the first time I saw the tops of a bird. Birds were flying, and we were looking down, and I could see the tops of the birds. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man, I'm seeing the tops of the birds. That's a first. So there's so many little things like that you get from the outdoors that I don't think you can get if you're not outdoors. I don't know how you would get that experience, of a whole different perspective of something. Now you're looking down on it, and then sometimes you're at the canyon floor looking up, and you see another perspective of it. So it's to me, it's kind of a mind-blowing thing when you're in these canyons of how they were formed, how long it takes, and how from different levels in the canyon you see different things, even though you might be looking at the same bird.
Yeah, and from a lot of people's perspectives that I've heard, you look at a canyon and thinking that nothing can survive out here. I've heard that before. There's no life here, and beauty in some cases. But when you get closer and you take a longer look, especially what I called it creatures. There's just a vast number of different animals that live and survive and even thrive in those locations. I have a similar story where my wife and I were at Palodoro in the sunrise, and we looked below us about 50 yards, and pretty much maybe 45 degrees down from us, about 50 yards away, and just a herd of all dad sheep. You know, and so it's, canyon's a pretty strange place where I never thought I would get to have the jump on a couple of all dad sheep in the morning sun, and just, you know, you just get to watch them about their business, living their life, and it's very different to being there in person, when you have the feel of the cold and the warmth of the sun, and you're hearing the crunching, even so far away with the echo of the canyon, you're hearing the crunching of the grass as the sheep are walking. And so pictures and videos can't do justice as if you just get out there yourself and see it. You know?
And smell.
Sense of smell. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the smell. You can smell their pee, man. Yeah, you can.
You can actually, I don't know if I should say this, but we lived so many years in Africa, like I could tell a male rhino from a female without even seeing them, just by smell.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that's what I want to do now. Now I'm going to go and learn to do that.
Yeah. Well, but you know what? It's very interesting. You know, and the more you get into nature, the more addicted you become. And you know, as much as we've done so much travel, and a lot of it to parks, you know, we stopped our tour for a couple years, just to regroup our websites and everything. And you know, we were at our computers 24/7. And I remember going, okay, we're going to go to. We were in Tucson. We were living in Tucson at the time, and we're going to go to Saguaro Park, which is like 10 minutes down the road. And, you know, you'd think we'd be there every day, but that's not the way life works. And that's the truth for everyone, I think. It's just not that way, a majority of us, I should say. And I remember that one day we had just been cooped up working so hard, and I was like that about Buenos Aires National Wildlife Refuge out there. It's one of our favorite places. And I can't sleep the night before. I'm like a kid. That's why I really identify with your books, because I'm like that. I'm like that kid that this is my candy store. Let me go. And it's like, I can't wait to go. I want to leave at 2 a.m, even though you're going to sit in your car and can't get any. You're not going to see anything, but I want to see the sun rise in the park. That's my thing. Is I need to see the sun rise, and I need to see every part of it. Like, I need to be able to experience the entire beginning. So I want to be there at the 3 or 4 in the morning, weird time. And then it's like, here it comes. I get this pure euphoria that no glass of wine or drug in the world will ever give me. Nothing will give me that. There's a pure euphoria of being out in nature and having that fresh air that I feel like your body does change molecularly when you're out there. You become more about who you really are as a human species. I know that freaks people out, but it's true.
Yeah.
Being outside,
and I feel like that
brings you back.
I feel like there's scientific research that backs that. I don't have a source, but I've heard that it says spend at least a week out in nature every single year, and it kind of resets your. Here I go, trying to spout out something, but
like
I've heard that there's research to back that up. Yes. But.
Yeah, but that makes sense. You know, it's like whatever environment you find yourself in, your senses go to work. So if you are, let's say you're now going to work in a restaurant, your senses are going to adjust to that and pick up things, nuances, and you react accordingly. But then now if you go outdoors, your senses are like, oh man, they changed again. We're going to have to like realign ourselves. And then eventually, because some smells are really, really stronger than others, so it may take a while in nature to pick up scents. But I come away from, you can always, it's going to sound bad, you can always smell a male scent more than a female scent. And then I think, well, maybe for a guy, they would go, no, I can smell a female scent before a male scent. I don't know, but out in nature.
You're right back there.
I know. Well, because it's interesting because when you're uh-oh, here comes the emails. Be kind to people. But if you can get your senses back on track, that's how I think about it. When you go outside and you're away from gasoline and cars and all the city smells, which is a whole other game field.
And sound.
Yeah, and sound.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can go out in nature, your senses have to realign themselves and go, oh, yeah, we're over here now. And they have to sharpen. And there are certain smells that are really stronger than others. So, and there's certain trees that have a pungent smell, that other trees don't have. There's all of that. And if you experience that, I don't know, it's a big game board to me. It's like, let's go see over here. What happens over here if you do that? If you rub this leaf, what happens? Because sometimes you rub a leaf and the smell is really pungent. Other leaves you rub and they're like, oh, I don't really smell it yet. Put your fingers to it. No, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's fun to be back in the wild, in the wilderness every time after being inside, because things move again, and things have different smells again, and so you relearn the shape of the earth, and you reconnect with that, and it kind of gets inside of you, and you just want to do that some more. I like to go on in a state park when I'm first discovering it, go on a long hike so that I can get familiar with that location. And I loved Tyler specifically you were mentioning, because I grew up in that area in Marshall and had not had a chance to connect with that area in a long time. And so it was nice to rediscover, there's been a beaver here because I'm seeing all these wood chips and there's little teeth marks in all of these trees. Cool. And man, I haven't stood quiet beside a thing of lily pads in a long time, or listened to the way laughter echoes across like a still lake and stuff. And so it's nice to rediscover these things.
I love it. I thank you for doing this, because I think it's so important, as we all progress in the world of technology. I think COVID-19, as we all got in this pandemic shutdown, we all kind of let us out of the house, like our dogs went out and go for a walk. Now you understand, get out there. We understand even the importance of our community parks. That's why we talk about all parks matter. It's the national parks, it's the state parks, it's the community parks. You need to be able to hear the birds. You're not going to know where the bird is until you understand. That's the other thing. It's like you hike around, where a bird is by the call, and then you understand what bird it is by the call once you start developing those senses. It's really exciting, because you start to understand and you could stand in wilderness and start to identify species without seeing them, just by hearing and smelling. And then now it's going to be weird with her, male or female pee. I don't know, but we'll get there in another. We'll talk about that with a biologist or a ranger or something.
It's just a question,
But that is a good point. That's a good point, But I think what you've done is really cool, and I do love what you made about you. A lot of times kids may never get to Texas, but your book can go to India, and it can go to England, and it can go to places that kids don't know about Texas. So you're representing this area and giving kids, number one, the experience to experience it now. Like a sick kid that may not be able to go outside can experience the outdoors through your book, but also inspire those who can get out there to get out there and go to their parks or another park. So I think what you're doing is awesome. So really appreciate your work. It's awesome. It's very cool.
Well, thank you.
I want to give a shout out to your illustrator, Sean Taylor. Nancy, you like the illustrations? I know you do. He's good, man. He's good.
I like writing things on paper for kids to read, but I don't think anybody would. Well, I mean, they would pick it up. I'm not going to say my stories aren't good. I love my stories. I'm glad to write them. But, man, he brings things to life, and it is just fantastic to work with Sean Taylor and just see how he's able to bring the natural places in Texas to the page where kids can just like feel like they're right in the midst of it. And so I love working with him, and I love his illustrations. So he's been a great partner along this journey.
Awesome.
It's pretty cool, like one person does this side and the other person comes in and goes, oh, well, for me, I'm going to draw it this way. And I mean, when you think about that collaboration and what it takes to successfully do that, that's pretty cool, because I don't think that's the easiest thing to do.
Mm-mm.
You have to have a good friend who you can work together with well, and I have to know, these are my ideas, but I'm not the artist, and so I just say, here's my ideas, you do what you do best, and he comes up with some fantastic, I mean, as you've seen, some fantastic illustrations, as well as the cover art. He kind of, that's unique that he does both the illustrations and the cover art, where normally that would be two different people, so he's quite the artist.
Yeah, he's got a good balance of it's like like you say, the cover art where it's full color and it's like not I don't want to say cartoony, but it's it's cover art. It's something that kids would go to, but his illustrations have a good balance of being, hey, this is fiction and fun, but also realistic, so that you can see the animal and know it's a skunk or know it's this kind of lizard, that kind of thing. And I think that's also really cool, because it's also learning. You're blending learning and fun together in a really cool way. And hey, that's, and when teachers can do that, I'm all for it, man. I love teachers that were able to do that balance. So thanks again, Jefferson. I want to give everyone your website again. It's TexasStateParkAdventures.com. The books are on Amazon, right? Is that the best place, or just go to your website?
Yes, they are on Amazon or my website, but that website will direct you to Amazon as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then also talk to, talk to your independent bookstores and say, hey, we want some, especially in Texas. Come on, man. I know you guys like to represent
your state.
We are working
on it.
You guys are still your own republic, no matter what, right? It is. It's true. You guys are Texas is still Texas. It's like its own country. I think that about every state we've been to. You can literally feel when you cross the state line that you're in a new place. It really is true. So cool. Even though we're all connected, there's like, okay, you're in Georgia now. I don't care what you think. It's not
there's
the
a
same
moment,
as Florida. It is, and Texas is. Oh, hell yeah. We are in Texas now. And I appreciate that. I love it. But everyone also, you can keep up with Jefferson. Go to Texas State Park Adventures on Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to be following you there, too. Now that I'm back on Facebook, Facebook allowed me back. I didn't do anything bad. I didn't. I got hacked. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm innocent. And, Nancy, we'll set you on that. Whatever. We'll see if it was male or female. I don't know. But thanks so much, Jefferson, again. And we're looking forward to book number 3. When is that coming out?
I am hoping for March. And it'll focus on a different part of Texas, kind of down in the San Antonio region. So we're gonna have an adventure in a river somewhere. That's what we're shooting for.
Awesome. I love it. I'm glad you answered with that you are having number 3, because I went, I just asked that, and you never know. It could be like, hey,
no, there will be a book 3. It is in the works right now. Yeah.
So awesome. Cool. All right, you take care. Thanks so much.
Well, thank y'all so much.